Hey, I'm Matt with 731 Woodworks. Today I want to show you how I make this X-base console table, or coffee bar I like to call them. It's a 3-shelf, 3-tier coffee bar, kitchen cart, whatever you want to call it. This is a really nice. We're going to start by cutting our 2x4s to length. This is going to be a 40-inch tall coffee bar. So I'm going to cut these accordingly, minus 1.5 inches for the top. So I'm going to start by cutting the first one, and then I'll lay the first cut one on top and start cutting them that way, so I can make sure everything's exactly the same length. That's how I like to do it. So my coffee bar that I'm building is going to be 3 foot long. The top will be 36 inches long. It'll be 40 inches tall. It's taller than normal counter height, and normal counter height is about 32 inches. It's going to be about 20 inches deep on the top. So the inside of that, I want a 2-inch overhang on each end on my top, and then a 1-inch overhang on the front and back on my top. So that's how I'm cutting my pieces out. So this is how we do it. I got this piece that is cut 13 inches. So when the 2 legs go on, you're looking at a 13-inch space here. And this is 1.5 inches, this is 1.5 inches, so that's 3 more inches. So the total width of your frame is going to be 16 inches wide. And then long, I cut these boards 25 inches. So I'll have one in the middle here for a top support for 25 inches. And then I'll have the 2x2s down here will be 25 inches. So that'll give me a total length of 32 inches. Add 2 inches overhang on each side for the top. That's 36 inches. So that's how I'm going to build this. Let's drill some pocket holes. So I got all my pieces cut out. What I did, I went ahead and cut the edges off these 2x4s to take that rounded edge off, just running through the table saw. Knocked about an 1/8 inch off each side. It's not gonna make that much difference as far as my dimensions go, but it gives it a cleaner look whenever these 2 boards come together. If you don't do that, then you've seen, if you go back and look at my Farmhouse end table, I left them rounded on purpose so that you can see those lines. It makes it a little more rustic. This one, I didn't want that to be that way, so I went ahead and cleaned everything up. And now it's time to assemble. I'm gonna take some 2.5 inch pocket hole screws and assemble this upside down. So you're actually, this is gonna be the top. And if you have any boards like this that have a little bit of that edge on there, a rounded edge like bark or whatever, where it's not perfectly square, I'll turn that to the inside so you'll never see it. I'm gonna use wood glue. Tight Bond 2 is what I use. Put the wood glue on there. I'm pretty liberal with it. I'm going to take a clamp and clamp that down so that it doesn't move on us when we go to screw it in together. So this is just a Irwin 36-inch clamp. And what's best for me is to go ahead and put this other piece on there, and we're going to screw one side down at a time. But if we go ahead and put that other piece on there, we can clamp it all together, and we'll screw it down after we get the other side. Basically, just gonna make sure everything's nice and flush. Flushing everything here, and then also, since this is the top, we don't want this piece sticking up too far or that sticking up too far. So what I like to do is just rotate it off the table, make sure it's flush all the way across. I don't even have the clamp tight, it's just holding position at this point. If all your cuts are square, if your miter saw is set up correctly, then if it's flush across the top, it should be extremely close to square. This is your leg for one side, or 2 legs for one side. It's not much to it. You're just going to build pretty much a square 2-inch overhang on the bottom, and the X part will go here. And we'll be done with this until we get ready to attach the stringers on each side. So I'm gonna build the next leg, and then we'll put it all together. Now I'm going to cut my 2x2s that I'm going to need for my stringers. So I joint one edge of the 2x4, and then I'll move the fence into 1.5 inches, and then I'll cut two 1.5 inch pieces out of that. So now that our two legs are complete, we'll tie it all together with this centerpiece. Now you can take, if you wanted to, you can take the 2x2 and put one on each side, if that's what you wanted to do. It's totally up to you, it just depends on the look you're going for. I prefer, if I'm gonna be doing this, I like this piece in the center, and then the stringers, there'll be one in the middle and then one up here. One thing I caught after everything was assembled that on the last build I did when I didn't video this, on these two pieces here, the top of your legs, what I should have done is take those and flip them over so that the pocket holes are on top, because that way you're screwing this way into the wood instead of out to the outside edge. I'm gonna leave these like this. I've already completed them, but for you at home, if you're gonna do this, flip those over, and then of course the ones on the bottom will be the pocket holes will be toward the bottom. That way you can't see them. But the ones on top will be covered up by your top anyway. So go ahead and flip those over so the pocket holes are actually on top instead of underneath. Just a little time lapse of me putting this together. You see I dropped one of the legs there, no problem. Just used my 36-inch Irwin clamp to hold it together while I attach the top stretcher. And now I'm going to install the side stretchers all the way around. So it'll be two on each side on the bottom, and then two in the middle. So now I'm going to put the stringer in for the middle shelf, and what I want is the equal amount of space between here and the top, the bottom of the top, and from the bottom of this to the top of this. That way I've got two equal size spaces here. And so if you measure down, if I measure this opening 16 3/4 from the top of this to the top of this shelf, and then that's going to leave me 16 3/4 in this area. So both areas are 16 3/4. If you're measuring from the top to the top of this is 16 3/4. If you're going to come up from the bottom of the leg, you're looking at 20 1/4 to the bottom, from bottom of the leg to the bottom of this shelf. So that's what we're going to do. Put some glue. We're going to pocket hole screw just like we did these other shelves, and we'll have those two stringers, and we'll work on our X pieces next. So I'm cutting my pieces for my X braces. Just I cut them a little long, and then I may have to sneak up on the cut to get it to fit just right. I always like to sand that before I install it because it's much easier to do than trying to sand it after it's installed. I put a screw through the top down into the X brace and one up from the bottom. Here's the fun part. Getting this piece. Now there's a couple of ways you can do this. I do it the same way that I did the other, where I'll clamp it here and I'll mark it. Except for this time you're going to have 4 cuts instead of just 2. So you're going to have a cut here and here, but you're also going to have a cut here and here. Now, some of you more enterprising and talented woodworkers know that you could half lap this. So you could, if you wanted to, you could cut half laps in half this one and half that one. What that means is you'll cut half of this board out, notched out here, and then half this one. That way they interlock. You could do that if you wanted. That's not how I do it. It's a lot more difficult. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to mark all the angles while I've got it clamped in place, the bottom, the top, and then where it joins here. So those are going to be some pretty sharp angles to cut right here. So once they're marked, we can unclamp it, take it to the miter saw, and we'll start getting these fitted in place. And the same thing before, I'll cut this piece a little long because you're going to have 2 different pieces, this piece and this piece. I'll cut this piece a little bit long and this piece a little bit long, and I'll trim them until they get just right where everything's lined up nice. On these 2 separate pieces here, I put a screw from the bottom into the bottom one, from the top into the top one, and then brad nailed where it joins. So that's how I do my X's. They're pretty simple. It takes a few cuts, It comes out nice and smooth. They're in there, they're not moving. Of course, you could take a hammer and knock that loose if you needed to, but with that glue and those brad nails, there's not gonna be no weight bearing there. This is aesthetics only, so that's only used for look. I'm gonna do the other side, and then we'll have our frame done. Oh yeah, and if you want to know the angle right here, it's 52 degrees. That's a 52-degree angle that I cut, and I think those were 18. So if you just want to try to guess at your angles or get those angles, as long as this is exactly like I built it. These pieces are 13 inches, I believe. And so if you got that same square there, then that should be, you should get an 18 degree and a 52 degree, and you'll be ready to roll. Hey, that's all there is to it. Now all we gotta do is sand this dude, and it'll be ready for paint. What I do like to do is I'll take a round over bit, 1/4 inch, and just round over the bottom of those feet. Keep those from splitting, and we'll sand this up. And once it's sanded, we'll put some primer and paint on it. It's gonna be a biscuit white. We'll go through all that. What you could do is if your angles aren't just right and you messed up a little bit, you can go back with some wood putty, fill that in, and you can fill those gaps up if you need to. Fortunately, this time I don't need to, so it looks like everything flows pretty good. Let me bring you closer, I'll let you look at these X's. All right, so there's the angle on the top. You can see it's a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of gap there. Once we paint this, you'll never notice that. And then the X where it joined up together, you see it matched up well. I'm gonna putty and paint those brad nails there, and then also on this side, so that you won't see that. That's actually a lip there. I'll be able to sand that down. And then on the bottom, it worked out really well. So as you can see, those X's aren't too difficult. You can tackle those if you wanted to. Just take your time, make sure you get those angles correct, and just kind of whittle on them a little bit till you get them right. And what you're looking for is this right here. Kabam. If you can make that other X disappear behind that one, you know all your angles are right. It's a good feeling right there. When I went ahead and pocket hole these, all this is sanded. I didn't want to bore you with all that, so I'm just letting you know. These will go on each end of the middle shelf. They will go in after it's painted, so that's why you go ahead and cut them out. For the top, I've chose 2x8s, and these are just common pine 2x8. What I'm going to do is take it to the table saw. We're going to joint one edge of each, and then rip them to size so that we have 18 inches. So we'll have 3 6-inch pieces is what we'll have, 6 inches wide, and then I'll pocket hole and build the top. Okay, so I'm using the table saw, like I said, to joint one edge there. Joint the one edge of each board, and then I'll flip it over and use the fence to cut the others to size. That keeps both edges nice and square. Then I'll pocket holes, about 4 pocket holes per board on 2 of the boards. That way we can build our tabletop. And just glue and then screw those together, and that's all you need to do. I use the belt sander to belt sand any unevenness out of the boards. And you see me using it pretty rigorously there to get everything, and I broke a belt. It's always the case. And just use the trim router to put a 1/4 inch round over all the way around. Now just sand it down to 120 is what I use, and then I use, then we go to the paint. I paint it with 2 coats of Sherwin-Williams Stain Block and Primer, and then we went with 3 coats of Sherwin-Williams Biscuit White Pro Classic. All right, we got this primed. Now it's time to cut the shelves out and fit them in place. These 2 shelves, we've already got our top done and everything. So I want to stain everything together, so I'm going to go ahead and do my shelves. If you're painting everything one color, you can assemble this whole thing and then just paint everything. But since I've got 2-tone farmhouse style going on, we'll have a painted base. This is just primed. I want to paint it biscuit white, and then I'm going to put my stained shelves in. So what I've got is the length from the inside to inside down here is 25 inches. So I went ahead and cut 1x8, 25 inches long, and I cut it just a little bit longer than 25 inches. That way I can nibble it up, or nibble on it, and just whittle it down until it fits just so. And so you just kind of sneak up on that cut and make sure it fits right. I've got 2 of those pieces, pocket holes on the bottom, using 1 1/4 inch pocket hole screws, And then we're just gonna join them together, and then I'm gonna rip off each side so that they're even and they fit in that spot. Let's do that. My shelf cut to fit. It took me about 7 or 8 tries to rip each side off. I ripped it long or wide so I would have enough, and I just, again, snuck up to the right fit. It's not screwed in there, it's just sitting in there. You want it snug just a little bit, and then once you put your screws in, everything will tighten up and you can flush everything up. This is just, like I said, you'll just set it in there for now. I've still got to paint this anyway, and I got to stain this and drill pocket holes in the bottom to attach. But I just wanted to let you see what it's going to look like once it's installed. So this is just 6.5 inches, 6.5 inches pocket hole together. Now we're preparing these for staining. So I use Minwax pre-stain conditioner on all pieces. What you actually see here is a tabletop, the coffee bar top, and then the shelves, and then 2 bench tops. But I use the pre-stain conditioner on all of those. Once that's dry for about 30 minutes, I will go start staining. And this is Minwax Dark Walnut. Now I put 1 coat all the way around, bottom and top, and then I'll wipe off any excess. After the stain is dry for at least, I like to let it dry for at least 24 hours. I come back and I use this wipe on General Finishes Armor Seal. It's an oil and polyurethane blend. It is some great stuff. I just use some old blue jeans as my rag. Wipe that on. 3 coats. Right now it's time to install the shelves. What I'm using is pocket holes. I've pocket hole screw, the 1.25" pocket hole screws for 3/4 inch material. I'm going to do 3 on each side and 2 on each end. That should attach it and keep it nice and sturdy. Here, this is where we install those 13-inch braces for each end that you saw me cut earlier. I've already painted those. It's just much easier to put these on after the fact. All right, with both shelves in, now it's time to mount this top using the rocker tabletop fastener. All they are is little Z-clips with a hole. And we've already cut our slots for that. So like right here, non-hole side will go in the slot. Hole side will be up flush with the top, and then we'll drive a screw in right there. Once I get this squared up, we'll be ready to attach it. This has got 2 coats of that armor seal. I think that's plenty with the shelves. And then it says on the can actually not to do any more than 3, or on the internet. I guess I read it on the internet. Here we go. Installing the top is pretty simple. Just be sure and drill pilot holes before you screw into the bottom of the top. Hey, if you like this video, I'd appreciate it very much if you would share it on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Comment below, let me know if you like what you saw or if you'd make any changes to it. If you want to see some other videos, you can check out some other build videos here, and then any recommended videos will go here.